John, there is almost Chafford's eyesore is behind you. What objections do you have to improving this eyesore, that is to say, the planning application that is on the table?
I have no objections to building premises here, particularly as we're going to get an extra GP surgery. But what worries me is the infrastructure. 239 sets of accommodation, 78 less parking spaces than there are houses of accommodations being built, and no infrastructure for ultra-low emission vehicle charging. If I lived in a second or third story flat, I cannot charge my vehicle. They've taken no provision for that, and no provision for any visitors. They've allowed 8 parking spaces for the doctor's surgery, but they've taken no thoughts of anything like that. If you look at the traffic around today on a Saturday morning, it's a cold and murky morning, everyone's running late, but you cannot get out of the road that they're suggesting. The only option would be to change the access to the arterial road, which is over there behind us, and not allow anything from this development onto the existing infrastructure.
Is there something about its height as well that you're concerned
Yes,
about?
the original planning was they stopped a tower block. Looking at the drawings, and that's all I can do, I'm looking at a 7 to 8 floor block of flats. That is much too high and will dominate the area. The highest building on Chafford Hundred is 4 stories high. That's either flats or townhouse. I think if they exceed that, then the character of Chafford Hundred is being taken away.
We seem to have been here before with Chafford Hundred. Whether it's 20 years ago or 10 years ago, this doesn't seem to stop this infrastructure problem.
It doesn't. I remember Chafford Hundred when the chemist was by the San Martin Hotel in the porter cabin, and they were developing it then. And the planners have not taken into account that people have children and they grow older, and as they grow older they have cars. I've got 2 daughters. We've now got 4 cars in our family because my daughters drive and they have to drive to work, and people that live on Chafford have to leave the area to get sensible employment.
What feedback have you got from the local councils, who you have been a little bit critical on social media, may I say?
Not unusual for me, but if one isn't critical with your local elected councillors, then nothing gets done. I've had 2 up here this morning talking to me, one who is standing for this ward and one who's incumbent, and one resident. My colleague is away, he's on holiday, but we cover for each other. The 2 of us together are fighting for the life of Chafford Hundred and the residents, and there's a lot of empathy, a lot of keyboard warriors, to coin a phrase, that will object and say this and that. When it comes to being counted, they're not there, and I'm really disappointed with that.
So where do you go from here? Because this is in many ways early days, isn't it?
It is early days. There is a meeting with the developers on the 19th of April, of which I will attend and put my objections to their proposed planning. The paperwork that they put in about the pollution and various things like that in schools all defeat their own object, because the schools are oversubscribed. Primary school's been covered, there's not enough secondary school places. Children on this estate are having to go to Averley and as far as Averley to go to school, and they have to pay to get there. Unfair. I believe that education should be walkable, not having to catch a bus.
But you're not going to give up this fight?
I won't give up until the day I die. I will fight and fight and fight, even down to weight restrictions on Chafford Hundred. There's a 7.5 ton vehicle weight restriction on Chafford Hundred. The sad thing is that it's not enforced, and the roads are too narrow. You can't get past cars that are parked legally, and some that are parked illegally, because the roads are too narrow to allow it. They only allow 2 vehicles rather than 3. So the initial planning wasn't right, and I don't want that to happen on any new development.
John, thank you very much.